nomenclature.
We're gonna have to find ways to use it.
I know in the engineering field or in any field, you start to learn the language of the field. That's getting the nomenclature of that.
There you go.
Presentation, education, image, they don't come from one.
All right, well, it's a great day to be a Toastmaster, isn't it? And I think I signed up for a role, and I guess I'm general value. Who's our Toastmaster for today? All right, Mark's gonna be our Toastmaster. Of course, I'm running a little late, but had all morning I sat there waiting for customers, and they all showed up at 11
Glad to
o'clock.
have you here. Okay, Toastmaster, the theme of the day is knowing who you are. That will be a good theme for today. It will relate to our speaker today and it'll relate to nomenclature, knowing who we are, the definition and purpose of our being. That's our theme for today. Do we have a joke of the day? That's a helper we've not called on regularly. Does anybody have a joke of the day? Jack?
I was in the doctor's office last week, and a guy came rushing in, and he started talking about he was invisible. So he asked the nurse to go make sure she tell the doctor he was there. So the nurse runs into the doctor and says, "There's a patient outside, says he's invisible." And the doctor turned back to her and said, "Look, tell him we can't see him today."
It's a great way to start off the day lightheartedly. So, as we're moving ahead, let's call on our helpers. The first helper that I'm going to call on is Nancy. You're going to be our grammarian today. So, what's our grammarian doing?
I'll be listening to as you speak and making sure you use proper grammar. You just use the English word correctly, and I'll take notes on miscorrection of the language, and I'll give you a correct, hopefully the correct way of whatever mistakes you make. I'll give you a correct way.
Thank you very much.
I'm still laughing.
Yes, you're going to be your all counter. What are you doing today?
Yes, I will be the eye counter for today. During our speeches, we tend to make some momentary pauses full of ahs, ums, and so's. I will be keeping track of these and give a report at the end on how everyone did.
Yeah, thank you very much. By the way, do we have a second speech evaluator that
No, he doesn't need us.
It doesn't call.
And I'm sorry,
Yeah.
KO, are you the general evaluator?
I'm the timer.
What's that?
The timer?
I'm the
You're
general.
the timer. Give us timer report.
Okay.
I'm doing your job for you.
I was late, so I.
As a timer, I'm going to be timing the speeches and the speakers and offering our flags at the right moment. I'm not sure yet what the requested time is for Ariel. Is it 5 to 7? Okay, 5 to 7. And Dick?
15?
Okay, 15. All right. So that means that Ariel, you'll receive the green card at 5, yellow at 6, and red at 7. And you have 30 seconds to wrap up your presentation at that time. Dick, you will receive the green card at
13?
13. All right, 13. The yellow card at 14 and the red card at 15. And you would have 30 seconds to wrap up your presentation. We will not be timing the table topics because we are trying to work on our internal timing. Sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Dave. I appreciate it. And so we will have speech evaluator 1 later will be Tara, be evaluating Ariel's speech.
Okay.
And who's speech evaluator 2?
Mine doesn't call for
Good
one.
Doesn't call for
It
one?
doesn't call for that.
Well, I'll give you one anyway.
I was hoping you would, yes.
You need one, okay. Here we go. So let's get going with our speeches of the day. First one up is a young lady that's moving right on through. She's doing the visionary communication pathway. She's doing level 3, and it is research and presentation. Here to give us a presentation about essential lavender oil, here is Ariel.
Unknown Friends, 1910. A young man, doctor and chemist, is in his lab working for his family's perfumery business. He's working with plant materials to discover and combine and create new scents for his family's business. When suddenly there's a terrible lab accident, he catches on fire, he runs outside, stops, drops and rolls because he's smart, because he's a doctor. And whenever he comes back inside, his hands are badly burned. So he thinks quickly on all that he knows about his plants, and he reaches for a bottle of oil that's on his work table, puts 5 to 6 drops on each of his hands, rubs it in, and prays for the best. In a couple of hours, though, his fever is spiking, he's sweating profusely, and he knows these are the first symptoms of a terrible infection known as gaseous gangrene. His skin is eating away at itself. But he doesn't panic, he keeps a level head, he reaches again for that same bottle, puts 5 to 6 more drops on, rubs it back in, repeats that procedure every couple of hours. Within 24 hours, his fever is gone, the sweating has stopped. In 2 days, all of that dead and damaged tissue has fallen away and is replaced by new pink skin. In 2 weeks, although he can still see the burn scars on his hands, he's amazed at how quickly and effectively and completely his hands have healed. Not only has he saved himself from losing hands and arms to gangrene, he's actually stopped the infection altogether. That experience propelled Rene Marie Scaffosset on a journey that through his life would end with his creating the nomenclature of aromatherapy. He actually coined that word and wrote the very first book and kind of started the world on this century-long journey of learning more about essential oils. And the oil that he reached for was actually not this exact same lavender oil, but a very similar lavender essential oil. That's my topic for today. Lavender is an amazing essential oil that has a ton of benefits, but the easiest way to try to remember all of these benefits is to think of lavender as the most soothing substance on the planet. It is so calming that before I came up here, I put a drop on my hand, rubbed it on my neck, took a big breath to try to calm down and achieve a level of calm. In keeping with that soothingness, it's very effective to help with sleep. In one study that I found, a group of scientists in a volunteer study taught a group of college students who have notoriously poor sleep habits proper sleep hygiene, and half of them also received some lavender essential oil to use in their sleep routine. Now, all of the students, thankfully, experience better sleep whenever we choose to sleep in a dark place and maintain our timeliness and schedules and things like that, then sleep comes easier. But the students who had the essential oil experienced higher quality sleep and higher quantity of sleep as well. In another study, a group of scientists gave a large group of rats depression and anxiety with artificial hormones and things like that. And then they compared lavender essential oil with some other known calming substances to help to treat them for their anxious behaviors. And the rats in the Leo lavender essential oil group experienced the quickest recovery from those anxious-like behaviors. In my own life, I've used lavender for the past 4 years or so. It was one of the first essential oils that I was introduced to. I like to use it on sunburns. I spent way too much time in the pool over this last weekend and didn't use sunscreen as much as I should have. So it's very soothing and helps the skin heal after that kind of trauma. More recently, or not more recently, about 6 weeks ago, I discovered for myself lavender's inflammatory properties. My son is 4 years old and he loves nuts, which is kind of weird for a 4-year-old, but there you go. And at my parents' house, he was kind of getting into some mixed nuts that my mom had brought, and there must have been a nut he hasn't tried before, because he got hives. It broke out kind of on his face and started to spread down his neck. And I start freaking out because I have a sister with asthma, and I've seen serious allergic reactions go pretty bad before. So as I'm like trying to stay calm and like ask him how he's feeling, he seems totally fine. He's still eating the nuts. Take away the nuts. And I say, okay, Josiah, how are you doing? How are you feeling? He's like, I don't know why you took away my nuts. I'm fine. And my sister, the same sister with asthma, is like, Ariel, calm down. Reach for the lavender. Like, let's do this. So first she puts some on me because anxious feelings, and then gives some to Josiah, puts some on his face and his neck where the hives have broken out. And we watch as over the next hour the hives go away, the redness goes away, and the inflammation of that reaction is done. And of course I watch him very closely over the next couple days, and nothing happens, and he's as good as new. It's those kinds of experiences with essential oils that have ignited in me a passion to learn and also a passion to share. So I have this bottle here that I would love to pass around, and everybody can take a sniff. Just take off the cap, hold it probably about this far away from your nose. No need to touch it. It's very strong. And then I also have here a resource sheet that has those studies that I mentioned, and also contact information for me if you would like to learn more. So thank you for your time and for your attention. Thank you.
Appreciate it. And we'll be looking forward to Tara's evaluation of the presentation in a while. So next up is our soon-to-be DTM, second DTM in Gorilla Toastmasters. He's working on his Advanced Communicator Gold certification. Today is his first of 6 speeches on Successful Leadership Series. And this is, once he does those 6 speeches, he's done and ready for his DTM. So here today to talk to us about what is management and what do managers do is Dick Horton.
I'm not sure if you've ever thought of yourself as a manager before. I know some of you do for sure, but as I go around the room and look, I think, for example, Nancy manages the kind of the graphic arts, if you will, component, or you're certainly associated with, and you're managing certain components of that. You're managing a family, Ariel, and whatever else, and I can go around. Ko manages a church. Jeff is helping manage a tennis team in the Salvation Army. Seth's got a business. Tara manages a department, I believe. We all have something that we manage. There's a lot to learn. It's very complex. And if we were to do a word association, if you think of management, you're going to think about Peter Drucker. And if you think about Peter Drucker, you're going to think about management. It seems unbelievable almost, but I'm not sure there's even a second person on the management list. The most prolific author in the history of the world, Peter Drucker. I don't care where you're at and what the subject, if it approaches management, Peter Drucker comes up. I've had this book for a long time, and as I page through here, there's places I've highlighted. It's small font, and I was going to see here, it's probably got, over 800 pages. There's a lot to know about management. There's a lot of components of management. We're just going to touch on a few of them starting today and for the next few weeks. And to coordinate that process, if you would just pass these around, please. And I would hope, I'm going to do all of my presentations at this club here so that maybe you could keep these workbooks. And we will just fill them out as we go.
Oops, sorry.
So again, we're going to talk about management, and to help facilitate our discussion, if you could just go quickly to page 5 and 6, and maybe write down, and it's self-explanatory, but on page 5 then, the first question is basically, what does management mean to you? And then page 6, just a comment about what managers do. So kind of a definition of management on page 5. Just a word or two, a sentence or so. And then on page 6, your idea of what managers do. So what is it and what do you do? And then I will compare that with what I call national best practices to close out the discussion. Okay. You feel like we can go ahead and move on now, then? Why don't we then pass these around and compare some of your comments with what Toastmasters International says. I looked carefully at that and chose to use it because I think it's close enough. Then what I'd like to do is just hear from 2 or 3 of you or so about your definition of management, and then we'll talk about how that compares to our handout here. So comments about what you call, what you wrote about management, what your definition is. Anybody want to offer one up?
I'll do mine.
Go ahead, Tara.
My definition is, as a manager, my role is to help serve my team and make sure they have the skills and resources they need to complete their assigned job duties.
There you go. Thank you. Very good. That's spot on.
I was similar, I suggested to organize, facilitate, and motivate persons under one's command toward a common goal.
I knew in this group, we weren't starting at square one with management. We have some experienced folks here, but those are right on. Anybody else?
I'm very similar to that. Helping the team meet its mission while taking care of those under your charge.
Jeff?
Well, I got plan, organize, control, evaluate, implement, and reinstitute people and resources to achieve the mission of the organization.
Good. You answered both questions, and you answered page 5 and 6 in one sentence. Very good. Anybody else? Well, it's important then to know exactly what you said, if you want to keep our definition here of management. I really can't add a whole lot to what you've already said. I've always thought of it very simply, it's the need to get things done through others. If I'm a manager, I'm not gonna get much done if you're my team and you're not all on board. So I've always felt every minute of every day as I interacted with my team, I always realized if you're not working, I'm not getting anything done, I'm gonna fail and we're all gonna fail, we're not gonna reach our goals. We can go on and talk about what our goals are and how we decide what those goals are and what kind of an effort it'll take to get it. But at the end of the day, in a short session like this, we realize that we're a team. As a manager, I get it done through you. We won't talk about the difference between a leader and a manager, but I would say a leader is someone we choose to follow. Jesus Christ is one of those that we have chosen many of us to follow. But a manager is someone that you don't really have to choose to follow them. You don't really have to be on board. So the manager has their work cut out for them. And we do that along the way as we try to get those things done. And tell me then what you said about what a manager does. Jeff already mentioned several of them in his response, but the kinds of things that a manager does, give me some ideas of what you had on your list. Things that a manager does. Jess, repeat a few of yours.
He plan, organizes, controls, implements, evaluates, and then reevaluate that, evaluate that and re-implement what needs to be done.
Plan,
It's a
do,
cycle.
study, act,
It's a
PDSA.
continual cycle.
Plan it, do it, study it, and act if you need to change it, PDSA.
Maybe-
Anybody else, things that a manager does? Anybody? Somebody had something. Manager
Serves as a coach.
Okay,
Serves as a coach. They help their team members fulfill their responsibilities and provides instantaneous feedback to help them when they are not able to accomplish.
this handout is one that I created quite a few years ago, actually. Dusted it off this morning. I always think of it as an acronym, POSDCORB, P-O-S-D-C-O-R-B. If I'm up in front of a group and I'm having a slow day, it's easy to remember that acronym, P-O-S-D-C-O-R-B. The one thing that all of we managers have in common is we plan, organize, staff, direct, coordinate, control, report, and budgeting. Those are the functions that we do as manager. And of course, in the middle, because I'm a planner, I always have to put the primacy of planning. It always has to start with the planning. But those are the management functions, and if you do those well, now each one of them, of course, can be a challenge. We won't have time to go into each one, but you can imagine just on planning, I've spent a lifetime trying to learn how to be a planner, and there's no finish line. How do you direct someone? You demand, do you ask nicely? Do you pat them on the back for a job well done on a timely basis? Do you give them the resources? I've learned from Peter Drucker a long time ago that the one thing that employees want is they want the resources with which to do their job. They want recognition on a timely basis, and they want some ability to make some decisions within some closed, tight parameters. But those are the three things that staff want. And we have to learn all of those things as we march our way through life. But we have to have the resources, timely feedback that's well-intentioned, and then the ability to make some decisions within some parameters. Those are the kinds of things that are embedded in these functions here. And having said that, I'll just stand for any questions or comments that you might want to make about management in terms of what it is and what managers do. Did it excite anyone at all about management or other comments that you do? Anything?
One question I heard about management, they say managers, are they born or are they made?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the question I've heard much talk about. Are they made or are they born? Same as leaders.
Same as leaders is
And
what I was thinking.
the answer is yes.
Well,
Which part?
They are born
unfortunately,
and made, so.
unfortunately, we ask that question because statistically in business, the number one failure is the ability to prepare people for management. They're immediately moved up to a management position, rewarded
Recognition.
because of their excellent productivity of their work, but they're never trained or taught how to be a good manager. So productivity falls and management fails because now we have somebody that doesn't know how to do the job. And so
Remind me, Bart, when that
we've
book,
always thought they had to be made because we didn't prepare. them.
remind me of when that book was written. It had to be maybe in the 70s. The Peter Principle. Everyone is sooner or later elevated to their own level of incompetence. You're a damn good custodian. I think you could be our new CEO. It doesn't work that way. You might be forever the best custodian, and that's what you're meant to be. You ought to read that book because it's still relevant.
There's another book that Kale recommended to me, the E-Myth Revisited.
Oh, yeah.
And it talked about small business where you have to have a manager, a technician, and an entrepreneur. These people have different functions. And in promoting somebody that's a technician to a management position, he may not be a manager, but he's a great technician. He knows how to do the sales and all that, but doesn't know how to get everybody else on board. to
Well,
do
actually, that was one of our examples in the workbook today. Really good salesman who wanted to be a manager.
Right.
And
And
this is just.
He wasn't sure he was prepared.
This is just coincidental, but when I think of like KO and other preachers, ministers, I really do think of this a lot. how challenging it would be to manage. Do you ever think of yourself as a manager, KO, or not?
I have to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because think of all of the sensitive issues that one would have to deal with for managing your church, though all of those relationships and folks are fighting. I just think, as a manager, I think that would have to be one of the biggest tests of all
I
time.
think one of the challenges of being a manager is knowing how to, each person has a different trigger to motivate them. I can pat one person on the back, but the other person needs a piece of paper or just something else, or just some people just need to be barked at. That's the way they work, and knowing how to manage individuals and what motivates them is challenging.
What I carry with me all the time on it's an app on my phone, which I leave in the car intentionally, or I'd show you, but I think it's called the PCM Pocket Index, and what that will show you when you open it up is exactly that. Every single person in this room has a little bit different personality, and as a manager, you have to have a good idea about what that personality is and how to approach them. For example, these are my own terms, but one of the personality types that I call is like a grenade thrower. They're very challenging to deal with. They will not respect you if you're real meek and mild. You have to approach them at their own level. Say, hey, Don, I don't appreciate that one damn bit. You came into this meeting, we were doing fine, you threw a grenade out in the middle, you blew us up. I don't like that. But if I said, oh, Don, darn it, Don, can't you be nice? You'd say, hey, I'm not gonna respect him. And they won't, but you have to know that about each person. If you ever think of it, that PCM Pocket Index lays out all of the personality types and what your approach should be. And once you're familiar with that, it changes forever how you deal with people. Thanks for your time today. Appreciate your input. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Jeff. And I look forward to giving your evaluation that you didn't want, but you're gonna get anyway. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Dick. Thank you much. So now it is time to move on. Let me ask the question. KO had mentioned that we won't have time for table topics. It's 12:33. Do we have time for one or two, or not?
I did not say that we will not have time. I said I will not time them.
Oh, you will not time it. I'm sorry, I did not hear you. That's a clarification question.
You will time, you just have to show the.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, you're a table topics master. Come tease us and tantalize us. I'm sorry I misheard you, KO.
It's all right.
I was just clarifying. Thank you.
I really got elated when I heard that part, nonetheless. With the nomenclature of management, as Dick brought in his topic in the discussion, I once had a nomenclature situation where I had to identify a psychobenetic fidget, which is one of the type of management styles that's out there. But nonetheless, since we're on that road, I wanted today to kind of, I was calling it the table topics, kind of an on-the-road type of table topics platform today, because we just returned from a holiday. And I'm sure most of us probably took trips on the road. I took a trip on the road just south down to Joplin this weekend. I didn't have the resources to get me down to the Bahamas. So nonetheless, what I want to do today is ask you some questions about on-the-road trip and get your responses to that. Let's start with Don. I don't think Don has had a table topics today. What car will be the most fun to take on a road trip?
What car would be the most fun to take on a road trip? Well, I've always thought what would be fun is to take something like an that movie Cars, where the old race car is a big old heavy race car. And I don't remember the name of that car. It was like a Roadmaster or some big car, and I think it would be fun to take an old car like that, pull it out of the junkyard and fix it all up. Put all the nice new modern stuff on the inside and paint the outside so it looks nice, and then put all those modern conveniences and hit the road. Just go out and see the country. And wouldn't that be cool if you had, it's a big car, so you've got a spot in the back where you could have a place where maybe the kids could sit back there and play their games, but you have big windows in this car, you can just hit the road. And it might even be adventurous because you might even run into a few problems with the car, and those actually turn out to be kind of adventurous when the car breaks down and you gotta do. They can be kind of fun sometimes. That adds adventure and excitement to the trip. But if you fix it up right, you probably wouldn't run into those kind of problems. You get to see a lot of things. You have this big, nice, comfortable car, and you just sleep in it somewhere along the side of the road. Just kind of enjoy the country.
The car I would choose is a Bugatti. Bugatti, yeah, 2.5 million a piece. I've always wanted one. And this weekend I got one. And I plan to take really a road trip with it. It's about that long. I want to stop at the Lego factory. So if you see me on the road in my Bugatti, please move over. Let's see who, Nancy. What's the best snack for a long road trip? If you could only take one snack, which would it be?
Thank you, Table Topics Master. My favorite snack is potato chips. I love anything potatoes as long as it doesn't have cheese. I'm good. I like.
Good to know.
I like fries and I like potato chips. And I like it plain with just salt. I don't want the pepper and all that other stuff. I just like it plain. The badness about potato chips is if you're in a car having a conversation, it's too loud as you chew it, cracks up and makes a lot of noise. So it makes you to be loud and to yell because you're trying to talk over the sound of your potato chips as you're chewing them. But that's one thing I like about potato chips. But one thing that I also don't like about potato chips because they don't fill up the bag.
Oh, yes.
You open the bag and it's half. And sometimes I don't buy potato chips because of that. Because you open it and it's half. So I tend to buy like 2 or 3 potato chips because out of 3 I'll get 1.5 bag.
Yeah.
But that's one of the snacks that I like to eat on a road trip.
On this next one. If you could go on a road trip with 3 friends, whom would you bring?
Well, thank you, Table Topics Master. If I could go on a road trip with 3 friends, who would I bring? That's a tough question to trying to think of who would I want to bring, who would I have to bring, or who would I be interested in going with. So I enjoy going places. I'm not wonderful at the traveling portion of that, which is kind of ironic, but I don't like riding in a car. I'm okay with flying. I don't mind sitting in an airport. People watching is fantastic. And it's entertaining. I just don't sit well in a car. I get fidgety. I gotta go to the bathroom. But as a kid, we didn't take that many long trips, partly because my brother and I would fight, or I had to stop and go to the bathroom and people would get mad. And anyway, so traveling isn't that exciting to me, so I probably wouldn't want to take that long of a road trip, so it wouldn't be that hard to pick people. But definitely right now, I would have to say my wife and my child I would like to go somewhere with. And I don't know who that third person would be, maybe Jesus riding in the passenger seat with us or something to get to a place. But it's more fun if you go somewhere and you have people that you love with you. And my whole vision of going places and traveling has shifted with my son now, because we aren't able to stay out as late or go do events, go to a concert or something if he's traveling along with us. But it gets you to see some other things. And Dick, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the place, but I need to ask you, the Gathering Place in Tulsa, if anybody who's been down there, is a really cool park, free facility, and going places like that and just seeing that and watching him interact makes my trips more enjoyable now as well. So it's kind of a skirted question. At a different point prior to that, I would have definitely mentioned different people to go on a road trip with, maybe having more fun and partying and drinking and that type of thing, but now it's just being with the family and going to a spot where we can have fun, where my 1-year-old can have a good time. So not as exciting of an answer. That's where I'm at. And at some point, hopefully we'll get to the flying, and then that'll be a different question too, getting to a location where it's not riding in the car with a toddler either. So thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Grandma's along, then you can go out and run.
True.
But everyone's participating today, right? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're not laughing. There you go.
I never did
So now, moving ahead now, let's hear from our evaluators. So first of all, Tara, tell us how Ariel did.
Thank you. This is my first time evaluating someone, but I think it's really important to get into that, and I appreciate everybody's evaluations when I've only spoke once, but I appreciate that, so I'm doing that for you. Your speech was on lavender essential oil. I also am a fan of essential oils, so I'm excited to hear about this speech and anything that she could share that I didn't know, but you did. So some of the things that you excelled in, I really enjoyed that opening story. I felt like you brought us in right away, and it was something that maybe not all of us are scientists or anything to where we're gonna burn ourselves to that extent, but we've all put our hands on a hot pan, and so it's good to learn about that. So that caught my interest. Your research was great. I like that you had multiple types of research. You had your internal, like your own stories, and then you had these external situations that happened for other people. And I really like that the personal stories at the end. You had a good flow with it. I feel like you had, you talked about a topic and you stayed with it, and then you flowed into the next one, so you weren't really all over the board. Some of the things that you might want to work on, you kind of stayed in one place a little bit, so maybe move around and use your stage more. And another thing, and this is what I'm terrible at as well, but watch your hand usage. You kind of did a lot of this, and so just kind of use your hands with purpose. And one thing I'd like to add to challenge yourself, maybe add more vocal variety to emphasize some of your points. I think at the beginning you probably could have, as the guy burned himself, maybe raise your voice and maybe add some just excitement to it. But other than that, I thought you did a really great job. Your essential oils worked. You didn't seem super nervous, so I thought you did a good job.
Thank you very much. So Dick, I want to talk to you about how you did on your presentation. I think you're starting to really get into a groove, because we've now been in Toastmasters for a while, and I've seen you evolve and get better. You were already a pretty good speaker when you came, but you're getting much more comfortable with what you do. Two of the things I really like today is that you were immediately engaging. You posed a question, you got the audience involved, you even included them in an activity in which they were able to answer a couple of questions, and then you asked for some of them to share that information. So you learned the key to being a truly successful presenter is it's not ever about you, it's about engaging your audience. And you did that from the start to the finish. And you finished up with a question and answer and allowed us to have a conversation and share with each other, which was rich and meaningful. So that was really terrific. You have a good stage presence and you were inviting. That's excellent. So a couple of thoughts that I had for improvement was, you got us to get engaged, but then when you asked for comments, there were 2 or 3 of us that kind of monopolized the conversation, took up the conversation, and there were some members that we did not hear from. So a way to allow people to engage is maybe they don't want to do it in front of everybody, so what you could have done at the end of that question and answer period is to have a pair share. So Ariel and Nancy, why don't you share your answers with each other and see what you come up with? Seth and Tara, why don't you get together? And that way they can be engaged, but not in front of the whole group. They're engaged with one another. Because as you remember, there are 3 acts of engagement. Student to material, student to student, and student to presenter. And that allows them an opportunity to get engaged, but I don't have to be up in front of everybody telling my answer. So that's one secret to get people more engaged than what you already did, which was fabulous to begin with. So that's just a thought. Think of ways to keep people engaged more throughout your entire presentation. We're right on track. Excellent job. Thank you very much. Now, let's bring up our general evaluator to come do his job. Don Thompson.
I get to get up there. That's what I get for being late to the show, right? All right, well, I'm gonna go right to my helpers. I've got some helpers that were introduced earlier by somebody else. We're gonna start off with our timer report. KO, would you let us know how we did on time?
Yes. Be glad to do that, Mr. General Evaluator. First of all, an apology to Ariel. Ariel, you did not see a green card. You did not see a yellow card. You went straight to red. My fault. I did not flip it right, and so my apologies. You did fine, however, I forced you to cut it short. You finished at 6:35. It was not your fault. It was all mine. Dick Horton, you asked for 15 minutes. You wrapped it up at 14 minutes and 5 seconds. Don, table topics 145, Nancy 118, and Devin Gorman 152. Evaluators, Tara 154, Mark Johnson 2 minutes and 1 second.
Whoa.
Awesome. All right. Good, good time. And our grammarian, Nancy, would you let us know how we did on grammarian?
As I was listening, everybody speaking, I did find a lot of mistakes. Everybody sounded proper, if I may use the word. Apart from Ariel just had a couple of incomplete sentence where you'd start one thought and you'd break off and start another one. Apart from that, everybody else sounded good. The use of the word of the day, Ariel and Jeff. Jeff used it twice and Ariel used it once.
All right, thank you. And Seth, how did we do on autumns and so's and buts and so forth?
On so's and buts and ums and ers, we did relatively well on everything except was used quite a bit. There were some repeated words that I also heard Nancy. I heard I heard a few from Dick, kind of where you would start a sentence and retrace that phrase back over again. But mostly the word of the day is we had a couple of buts and so's, no more than 5 or 10 throughout the group. In particular, Ariel, I think you had maybe the most ums, but I do want to point out, as I was listening to your speech, they were after the halfway point or thereabouts. So I think you had a very strong beginning, and then as maybe the speech got a little longer into it, maybe you got more nervous and used more ums. But very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, well, as general evaluation, I'll talk about me a little bit. Do we have a survey form? Do we have a new survey form that we're going to use for today?
It's not ready yet. Pieces of
Not
paper.
ready yet.
No, we're just under advisement.
Okay.
There were some strong opinions about that.
We had some things going back
Which
and
is,
forth.
no, that's great.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what we wanted.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
That's exactly perfect.
So that's how we get, we work out those kinks
Mhm.
and get some things going. So 'cause my thought was that we need to get how people felt about the meeting, as well as some objective and subjective.
That's perfect.
All right.
I think that's perfect.
And are we doing the 1 through 10?
Yep.
0 through 10?
We are.
Okay. Let me get a pen and I'll do mine, please.
Gosh, I'm hungry.
And one of the things we can consider on that form as we go down the road is that maybe there's a benefit, since we might just have one objective form, but the group says, right? So we have that interaction there. And I'm not talking 10 or 15-minute discussion, but I am, yes, thank you.
I'll collect them, turn them into the tabulator.
it.